I'm Governor Bruce Rauner, and you're watching Rabbi Doug.
We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug on your TV tonight.
But Daddy, I want to watch Monday Night Football.
Forget about Monday Night Football. There's no other thing we're gonna watch on Monday but Rabbi Doug. Yeah, Rabbi Doug on TV tonight. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. Oh, everybody talk about Doug.
Shalom and welcome to Taped with Rabbi Doug. Glad you could be with us today. We are here for Yom HaShoah 5778, and I am here with Henry Jelen from She'erit Haplaita. I want to talk about She'erit Haplaita right now because obviously it's an organization that I've been very close to and cared about for a long time, being as well that so many people that I'm close to were involved with the organization, including you over the years. Tell us a little bit about what She'erit Haplaita is, what it means, what the organization does, and we're going to talk about Yom HaShoah, which is why we're here today.
Very good, thank you. She'erit Haplaita started, you know that the survivors came here sometime around 1949. From then on, the survivors, they came here with nothing. They came here.
And most of these Holocaust survivors came from after the war because they were in temporary locations, in camps. You know, where were we during the time, from the time the war was over until they came to the Midwest in the United States?
It depends on where they came. Some of them survived through camps. Some of them survived in Russia. Now, all of these people ended up in a transition camp, a DP camp in Germany. From there, they were able to try to get some sort of a location, some sort of visas to get to Israel, to South America, South Africa, America. And so when they came here, they didn't know the language. They lost so many people. A lot of them lost their families, their siblings, their parents. And they came here, either they married in Europe, or they found here because they wanted to start a new life. They wanted to start families because they had nobody. And so when they came to Chicago, I can only talk about that, they came here and they couldn't talk to the American Jews because they didn't have the language. A lot of the American Jews didn't speak Yiddish, whether it's Galiciana Yiddish or other Yiddishes. They wanted to be with people that they could connect with, that they can speak with, that they can talk about their experiences. And so in Chicago they had Landsmannschaft groups, and those were groups that there had 9 of them. They either came from the same town or the same state, part of the Poland or Czechoslovakia or Russia, not Russia, all of those areas, and they got together. They played cards. They went to.
They bought sections of cemeteries, so they could all be buried together as well. And they became the Landsmannschaft groups from these areas. They also became charitable organizations. They raised money for charity for Israel, for different causes, Jewish causes, in their gatherings together.
Absolutely, and they were strong Israel supporters, very strong Israel supporters. And so they got together. And once a year, they started having Yom HaShoah programs. And the reason for that...
And Yom HaShoah, by the way, is Holocaust Memorial Day. It happens in the Jewish month of Nisan, after Passover, just a couple of weeks after Passover. Yom HaShoah is observed on the Jewish calendar every year. And go on, please.
Yes, and the reason we did that, they did that, is because they didn't know where their families were murdered. They didn't know where they were buried. So this was a time, once a year is a Jewish tradition, we say Kaddish for our family. And so here is an opportunity for all of them to get together and say Kaddish together and to remember together. And this was the reason for it, even though they got together every month and played cards, as I mentioned, and supported communities and so forth.
The date was established, by the way, by the State of Israel as a national holiday of memorial for Holocaust victims.
Correct. And in around 1977, when the neo-Nazis wanted to march in Skokie, that formalized all of them. They got all of these 9 groups together, and started the museum on Main Street, the Holocaust Museum on Main Street.
Which was a small museum east of Skokie Boulevard and west of Crawford on Main Street.
Okay. Yes.
They gathered there, and what did they do?
They gathered there and they wanted to teach the community about the Holocaust. Here we had the neo-Nazis marching, and they wanted to explain. Up to that point, as I mentioned before, they couldn't talk to the American public. And here they wanted to educate the Jewish population as well as the non-Jewish population, because they wanted the never again to mean something. Now, She'erit Haplaita, the group that didn't want to necessarily educate the rest of the population, they wanted to stay and be insular and to have a Yom Hashoah program for themselves. And as they grew older, that was more and more important for them. And the other side of the 9 groups wanted what I just said in the museum. So the She'erit Haplaita that I'm president of at this moment, Charlie Lipschitz was the last president a year and a half ago.
A wonderful person.
Yes, and he had a foresight in having the second generation. I was the president of the second generation for 15 years.
Children of survivors.
Children of survivors. And the way we developed there, if you want me to say a few words about them, in 1978 we had Ellen Epstein wrote a book, Children of the Holocaust. All of us, second generation, looked at the book and said, my God, there were other people who felt like we were, like we did. And so from that book, we started support groups. And from that support group, the second generation, the children of these survivors got together and started support groups. And then we started the second generation group, where we could get together and we could commune with each other without having, when we talked about each other.
Especially those whose parents had already passed away, and you want to keep the memories alive. That's an important thing.
Absolutely, but when we talked in the same way as the survivors talked to each other, they didn't have to have footnotes as to what those sentences meant, but their experiences meant. So that was the second generation. Then I was asked by Charlie and a few other people, Moshe Hupsher and so forth,
also of blessed memory,
to help him to support the She'erit Haplaita, to take over some of the duties. I've been involved with She'erit Haplaita and the museum for the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. And so I was doing a lot of the work with other second generation, and when he passed away, before he passed away obviously, he asked me to take over. And this is what I'm doing in order to perpetuate the remembrance that these survivors can still have the monthly programs that we provide, and also the Yom Hashoah program that we've provided.
Very nice. So this year's program for 5778, we're going to be with Governor Rauner and a number of other officials who are going to be there, including the mayor of Skokie, the representative from the House of Representatives, Jan Schikowsky from Illinois, and others who are going to be there with us at this event. So stay with us here on Taped with Rabbi Doug, and we are going to observe Yom HaShoah.
Governor Bruce Rauner could not be here today, as he is conducting a trade mission in Germany and Poland. He has sent us a video message, which we'll see now on the screen, and afterwards we'll hear from the Honorable Lieutenant Governor Evelyn Sanguinetti.
Hello. I wish I could be with you this weekend for Yom HaShoah, but I assure you that for me, this will be the most moving Holocaust remembrance of my life. I'm traveling in Poland, and as you gather today, I'll have just completed visits to Auschwitz and the site of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. I'm quite certain that seeing these places, where such evil atrocities took place, will horrify and humble us. Yet, with thanks to Adonai and reverence toward the 6 million we lost, they will also bestow a resolve to always stand in defiance of discrimination and bigotry. Our resolve must stay rock solid as anti-Semitism is rising in so many places around the world, including the U.S. and unfortunately in Illinois. In the chaos and uncertainty of our times, intolerance has reared its hateful self. At this time, then, from this hallowed place, I prayerfully implore us all to reject destructive, prejudicial forces. They have no place in our world, no place in a free society. To remember is not only to look back, but also to look ahead and renew our commitments to tell the stories of the Holocaust to our children. Our children need to know hate cannot be left unchallenged. They need to understand that silence is the ally of oppression. They must be taught that even in darkness, there is the possibility of light. It is a privilege to join you and Jewish communities across the world on this day of remembrance. Let our resolve grow, and let us pray that we are never again, singularly or collectively, afflicted by indifference to human suffering. God bless you and the Skokie Agudath Jacob Synagogue. My prayers are with you tonight and always.
Evelyn Sanguinetti was sworn in as Illinois' 47th Lieutenant Governor on January 12, 2015. She is currently the highest-ranking Latina in the history of the state of Illinois. She is a working mother of 3, an attorney, an adjunct professor of law, and a former Wheaton City Councilwoman. Evelyn is committed to fighting for all Illinois residents. She will apply the same passion to her new role that has propelled her throughout her life, from humble beginnings in Hialeah, Florida, to becoming Illinois' first Latina Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. It is my deepest honor to be here with all of you today on Yom HaShoah. Governor Bruce Rauner really wishes he could be with all of us today, but he's on a trade mission, as you heard previously, in Poland, and will continue to build on the tremendous relationship between our two countries and to foster more business opportunities between Poland and the great state of Illinois. I know his thoughts and his spirits are with all of us today. However, as he has just completed visits to Auschwitz, where so many evil atrocities took place, as well as a site he recently visited in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. It's so important that we continue to remember the 6 million individuals that we have lost. And it's important that we stand strong together, united against evil and against hatred. I am so proud of Holocaust survivors and the work and determination that they have put into rebuilding their lives here in Illinois and to make us a better state together. We want to thank She'erit Haplaita. I'm sorry, my emphasis lies with Spanish, but hopefully that's a good try. Hopefully I'll get an A for effort. I'd also like to thank the Jewish United Fund, Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Chicago, for all of the work that they do. And I also would like to thank the Jacob Synagogue for hosting us today. It is a great honor and a great pleasure to worship alongside all of you today so that we may always remember and we may never forget our survivors. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Now we'd like to welcome our strong supporter, Honorable Mayor George VanDusen of Skokie.
Good afternoon, and thanks to all of you for coming this afternoon. If ever there were a time that we should remember, it's at this particular time as the baton of leadership is passing. This morning we were reminded of the passing of our dear friends. This past week, we also were reminded that our job is far from over. A new study was released by the Council on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany, and its findings are very sobering. 31% of Americans and 41% of millennials think only 2 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust. Additionally, 11% of U.S. adults and 22% of millennials said they hadn't heard of or were not sure whether they had ever even heard of the Holocaust. 40% of adults and 66% of millennials could not identify Auschwitz as a Nazi concentration camp. Those are horrific numbers. Despite all of the efforts of all of us to create memorials, to never forget, our job is only beginning after all of these long years. I hope that the new generation of millennials who are taking the reins of leadership will never, ever forget and will not let our population across the country and across the world ever forget. Holocaust happens in Syria, and we must be aware that even in our own daytime, Holocaust continues, genocide continues. My thanks go to the organizers of today's Yom HaShoah, but let us continue our efforts together. Thank you so much for being here, and I applaud everybody's efforts. Thank you.
Now we'd like to welcome Honorable Aviv Ezra, the Consul General of Israel.
Dear Holocaust survivors, distinguished guests, and She'erit Haplaita management, thank you very much for having me here today. Several weeks ago, as we sat down at our Seder tables, we read how in each generation there are those who seek to destroy the Jews as a people. This was certainly true in ancient times, to Assyrians, the Babylonians, and the Romans. Later in the Middle Ages, there were the expulsion, the horrible England and France, the ruthless Inquisition, and the horrible pogroms. But the most recent attempt to exterminate us, and the most systematic and nearly successful onslaught, occurred not thousands or even hundreds of years ago, but rather in the generations of our parents and our grandparents. The murder of out of every 3 Jews in the world was unprecedented, even by our people's tragic standards, a catastrophe that would have extinguished the ability or even the will of most of any other people to survive. Yet at the Seder, we also learned that we did survive. Moreover, we drew ourselves up from oppression of slavery and emerged as free people. We learned to redefine ourselves not as victims, but as masters of our own destiny. We learned to defend ourselves by ourselves from enemies mightier than we. Yet after the Holocaust, this was by no means certain. First, there were the theological challenges. How could a God portrayed as loving his people remain passive while millions of his people were tortured, shot, and gassed? In the Passover story, God hardened Pharaoh's heart, but in the Second World War, God hardened the heart of the world. But there was also the physical question. Reduced to a mere 13 million people, scattered all over the world, demoralized, how can we Jews remain a united, vital people? To paraphrase Ezekiel, could our dried bones rise again? After Auschwitz and Birkenau, could we Jews ever again be at home? Then, a mere 3 years after the Nazi surrender, in one of the most epic and inspiring events in human history, the same devastated people proclaimed their independence in the land of their forefathers, the land of Israel. My friends, though threatened, we will not be victims. Though we grieve, we will be galvanized by hope. Today, my friends, we do not merely survive. Today, we thrive. Thank you very much.
We are honored to welcome today Dr. Julian Ungar-Sargon. Dr. Ungar is Deputy Commander of the Indiana Guard Reserve's 19th Medical Regiment and serves as its Executive Officer.
Does everyone read with me? Lama Natseach al Ayelet HaShachar. Eli, Eli, Lama Azavtani. This is Psalm 22, written by David. He's asking that question, and that question has been asked in the history of Jewish and Christian literature. Why have you forsaken me? So this presentation really is an invitation into my own spiritual journey as I grapple with the question, Lama Azavtani? Why? It starts with my father, who witnessed the Anschluss and saw Hitler march through the streets of his beloved Vienna in 1938. And as part of the Kindertransport with 2,000 children on that fateful train, leaving his parents and sister, becoming a refugee and arriving in England at the same time becoming an alien in a strange land. Then being he was an enemy alien class B, where they were sent either to Canada, Jewish man. He was sent to Australia with 2,000 Jewish refugees in the hold of a ship to be interned for 2.5 years with nothing but bread and Australian butter. I was born 5 years after the Holocaust. And my father's silence whenever I asked him about his absent family. I had no family on my father's side. And my absent grandparents and Aunt Litzy, I couldn't make out, he wouldn't respond. I now realized that was based on that fateful day at the Bahnhof in Vienna, where he had to say goodbye to his parents and sister, never to see them again. I now realize that that unconscious sense of betrayal and guilt cast him into decades of silence, and the question as to why he survived alone haunts him like it does you to this day. Hashem is only when you have a choice. The martyrs were Kedoshim. They didn't do Kiddush Hashem. They had no choice. They were Kedoshim. After the war, if you can stay a Yid and you can keep your faith despite everything, and maintain your tradition, and teach those holy children here sitting in the front. That's the Kiddush Hashem that will give those who we validate, memorialize, and give them the final deserving memory, not give Hitler another victory. Thank you so much.
I want to welcome Rabbi Ari Hart, Rabbi of Skokie Valley of Gudath Jacob, to address us today.
Memory in Hebrew is zechirah. Zechirah. And zechirah in Judaism is not passive. It's not passively, oh, I remember. No. Zechirah in Judaism is always active. Zechirah, to remember, always comes with action. It's always connected with a deed, with a prayer, with a song, with a food, with attending an event. Zechirah in Judaism always means doing something. We are still 2 million Jews fewer today than we were in 1939. We must remember. So by being here, we are taking action. And I want to encourage everybody to remember what you've heard here, especially the young people, and take it out. Take it out into the world. Make a difference. Fight for our people. Fight for the state of Israel. And through our action, through our memory, may we merit to achieve the promise of never forget, of we will always remember. Thank you.
Welcome back, Yom HaShoah 5778. Now, next year for Yom HaShoah, things are going to be a little bit different, I understand. The plan is in 5779 to move from Skokie Valley Traditional Synagogue, where it's been for a number of years, to Wilmette, to Beth Hillel B'nai Emunah Synagogue. And I understand that this is going to be co-sponsored not only by She'erit Haplaita, but also by the Illinois Holocaust Museum, which of course moved from Main Street to their beautiful campus, which is right off of Gulf Road on Woods Drive in Skokie. Is that true? That's the plan?
That is the plan. And what I tried to do this year is to, as I mentioned earlier, the 9 Landsmannschaft groups sort of split with the museum and the She'erit Haplaita. I tried to bring them back together again this year.
And that's the plan for the coming year.
And that's the plan for the coming year this year.
Very, very nice. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show, Henry. Henry Jelen, the president of She'erit Haplaita, the founder, along with some others, of the Children of Survivors of the Holocaust. He is someone who has made a difference to the Jewish community, and I want to thank him so much. We've been friends for years, and as a matter of fact, I don't want to embarrass you, but just a few weeks ago on our show, we had his sister-in-law, Chana Turtletaub, who is a Yiddish expert, and you also speak Yiddish, and your wife, her sister, is also a Yiddish speaker.
And we all speak Yiddish.
It's an amazing thing that this family has carried on the Yiddish language into the next generation. And I know you do some translating of Yiddish things just like your sister-in-law.
A little bit, but when we had our daughter, we decided to have her speak Yiddish as well. It was very difficult because there weren't too many young children in Chicago that speak Yiddish. And so, but now she's very happy to speak Yiddish.
I remember her as a baby. Very nice, very nice. If you want to check out our website, www.tvrabbi.com, you can also see former shows on the web. If you want to email Henry or somebody who's involved in the Yom HaShoah program, you can send us an email, info@tvrabbi.com, where you can also email us. I will forward those emails to Henry or whoever you'd like me to contact for you. I know they'll get back to you personally. So thank you once again. We should turn Yom HaShoah into not only the great remembrance that it is, but to the days of the Messiah. It should turn all our sad occasions into happy occasions for everyone. See you next time right here on Taped with Rabbi Doug. Shalom, everyone.
Amen.
על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על החמר וחמתות, על נטוע כל נטוע.
This has been a Taped with Rabbi Doug production.